was really wanting to have my mortgage paid off on this condo that you're looking at right here by the time I was 50 years old. So I was taking a lot of extra money from my paychecks and sending $600 in addition to my regular mortgage payment to pay down the principal. I'm sure that in the future we'll have some episodes on, what are the advantages of paying down a mortgage or not paying down a mortgage. Sometimes it's a personal decision. It depends on what you have going on in your life, what expenses you may have earmarked for the future, like what's on your radar in terms of things that you may need to pay for. And so again, it's a very personal decision, I think, not always a monetary one, regarding paying off a mortgage. Now, of course, we know if it's a high interest mortgage, then it would seem most logical to pay it down. But maybe you could get more in the stock market. So those are things you can talk to a financial advisor about. I just coach people on their money to motivate them to do better and things like that. So there's, again, lots of different schools of thought on that topic. But on the show, I remember talking to Suze about it, and if you go back and watch it on Amazon, you'll see that she says to me, you've got a 5.5 interest rate on your loan, your mortgage, right? And there's this pause. I thought she was going to give me a Suze smackdown. There's a pause, and I say, yes, that's right. And she goes, stay with me. And she goes on, and she says, why not refinance, again, as I told you last time, at about 3.25%. That way you can then save more money into savings and investing, because she said that you don't know what's going to happen in life. You don't know if your job is 100% secure or not. Now, looking back, yes, my job was secure, but in 2012, I didn't know that for sure. We can never know for sure if our jobs are going to be secure. I got lucky, but I had enough bad luck back in my 20s and 30s when I had job after job after job, and rejection and rejection and rejection. And so, in a small way, and you may relate to this, I felt like I had somehow paid my dues, if that makes sense. However, she did say that you may want to, again, refinance the loan, and instead of going to another 30-year mortgage, she said bring it down to 15 years. Very, very good advice. So if any of you are going to refinance from a 30-year mortgage, it's always best to do so at a 15-year mortgage. Now, right now in the environment that we're in, I don't think many people are refinancing, right? But in the future, that may happen. Interest rates could go down, and people could, of course, start refinancing, like what happened in 2012, etc. And so, last time I was talking about HARP, and I may have missed this, I don't know if I shared with you. Let me backtrack just a little bit. But with the HARP program, you did not have to have 20% down to refinance, because traditionally you need about 20% to refinance. But because so many people were losing value in their homes and homes weren't valued much, the HARP program, the Housing and Affordable Refinance Program, you still need closing costs, which you can then recoup because your mortgage, of course, would be a little bit lower, the payment, and you can recoup that. So that's, again, what Suze Orman gave me as the advice, was to refinance. And so, guess what? I decided to take that advice. I went back is there a possibility to refinance? Now, I will say it took a little while because they were overwhelmed with the response of people that were refinancing through the HEART program. But they finally got to me, and I did refinance, and I got a 15-year mortgage in 2012, as I mentioned, at 3.25%. Now again, we may someday be in that environment. If you're watching this video in the future, then we could be going into a recession at some point in the future, who knows, which means interest rates may go down. So as I said, there could be another batch of people doing refinances. But I remember thinking that she was right, that I wasn't really exactly sure if my job was 100% secure. So again, I did refinance. I got the new loan. But then as the years went on, which I'll talk about in subsequent episodes, and I think I've alluded to it in the past, I did end up paying off that mortgage before the end of that 15-year term. In fact, I did it in 7 years because I wanted that big win for myself at that time, and it was in 2019. We'll revisit that topic a little bit later. But as I mentioned on a couple episodes ago, sometimes you have to look at things with personal finance and say to yourself, self, how are you going to feel more powerful? You still want to be smart with money, but if there's an opportunity to pay something off that you have a loan on, and if you feel comfortable, if you've looked at your budget, if you've looked at things that you've earmarked for future spending, then maybe you could do that and pay a mortgage off, if that makes sense. So I didn't have any big expenses in the future, so I took about $30,000 in 2019, and I just got rid of that mortgage at that time. So in thinking about closing this episode, I just wanted to also then share with you a couple things. Number one, in each year going forward for 2013, 14, 15, 16, I'm going to do my best to share with you some numbers, which I kind of alluded to or gave you some numbers in the past about, remember, my balances of my investments over a 12-year horizon from 2012 through 2020, I think it was. I have those numbers in front of me here, but I also want to share with you what percentage that my portfolio either gained or lost during these years, just to give you an idea of what is possible when you invest money. Now, let me say right now that as a disclaimer, we don't know what the future will bring with the stock market. So I'm not suggesting that you'll get the same interest rates that I got in unrealized gains over the next 10 or 15 years. But I just wanted to share with you because I remember thinking back into 2012 and even before, a lot of people would say, well, you'll probably get, 8% return on your money, maybe a 6 to 8%, maybe even 10%. And I remember thinking to myself, why don't I start tracking my actual numbers, not only my end of year balances, but also reverse engineer and think critically about what did I start the year with, what did I end the year with, and then back into the percentage of either a gain or a loss for my portfolio, regardless of how I was allocated to stocks and bonds and cash, if that makes sense. So again, I'm not suggesting that these will be percentages that you will get. I'm just sharing it as a historical type relevance, if you will, in terms of what my portfolio has done. So you may recall in a previous episode I said in 2012 my net worth happened to be about $210,000. Remember my mortgage and the loan I actually, at the end of 2012, it was 210,000, but my portfolio in 2012, 12%, and I like to refer to the 12% as other, because it could be interest on bonds if you have that in your portfolio, or it could be unrealized gains with your stocks that are in your mutual funds, or it could be dividends that are paid back into the mutual fund, and there's compounding effects with dividends. So I just like to call it other. It makes it easier for me. So I closed the year of 2012 at a 12% gain. So again, keep coming back to ASMR Money Mentor, because I will be sharing with you how my portfolio performed in subsequent years, and also giving you that interest rate as well. One more thing before we go. So when I was on the show, the How Am I Doing segment, I'm talking to Susie, and she's saying, yes, I went all over your finances, and I, have a way for you to go to an A, but she asked me, what do you think the grade is that I'm going to give you? And I said, well, Susie, I think you're going to give me a B. And she said, that's right. So she gave me a B. She didn't think I was being as efficient with my money as I could have been, based on the fact of what I shared in this episode about refinancing the mortgage, because you just never know what your own personal situation will be with your job situation. So she ended the episode by saying, you are doing great. So those were words that have since resonated with me as I've moved forward towards financial independence. Now, did I need somebody to really tell me that? Not really. But as I shared with you before, I was not real confident in my own abilities, and I'm not ashamed to share that with you in this episode. But I knew that to have somebody like her say that you are doing great meant a lot to me as far as how I could move forward in subsequent years. So I'd like to leave you today by saying that you guys are doing great as well. Whether you have debt and you're paying that debt down, or maybe you're out there hustling and you have side jobs, maybe you're doing Uber, maybe you're doing other things in the gig economy to make extra money. Those are great things you can do in the economy that we're in right now. And one day, as I've said before, if you're not there already, you'll transition from a surviving type of situation where you're just